Hello everyone, it's Seth, probably better known as Saffron Olive, and we're back here today with another edition of Against the Odds. So last week, coming out way ahead, the most any option had ever won by was Worldfire by a huge margin. So this week, we are playing some Worldfire in Modern. So as you can see, the deck is about 500 bucks in paper, just under 200 bucks online, and I think it's pretty sweet. So let's break it down. First off, we have the namesake card Worldfire. So this is a 9 mana, 3 of it red, sorcery. It says exile all permanents, exile all cards from all hands and all graveyards. Each player's life total becomes 1. So everything is gone, and everyone goes to 1 life. That is what Worldfire does. Obviously, the challenge is we're in Modern, and this is 9 mana, and typically you don't cast 9 mana spells in Modern all that often, so we got to get a little creative with how we actually get to cast Worldfire. So enter another wacky artifact from the original Mirrodin block, Spellweaver Helix. So Spellweaver Helix is a 3 mana artifact. It has imprint, so when Spellweaver Helix comes into play, you may remove 2 target sorcery cards in a single graveyard from the game. Now, Worldfire is a sorcery, so we can exile Worldfire and 1 other sorcery. And then whenever a card is played, if it has the same name as one of the imprinted sorcery cards, you can play the other copy of the other without paying its mana cost. So if we can exile a Worldfire and a Gitaxian Probe with our Spellweaver Helix, the next time we play a Gitaxian Probe, we get a Worldfire for free. So that is the general idea. As such, we have a bunch of ways to get things in our graveyard. Some of them are also sorceries. So first off, we have 4 copies of Faithless Looting. Pretty simple. 1 mana red sorcery, draw 2 cards, then discard 2 cards. So this allows us not only to discard our Worldfire, but hopefully something else, plus it gets the Faithless Looting into the graveyard. So in theory, we can Faithless Looting, discard our Worldfire, and some other card, and then we can exile the Faithless Looting and the Worldfire with our Spellweaver Helix. Next time we play a Faithless Looting, we get a Worldfire for free. And then, of course, Faithless Looting, you can also flash it back for 2 and a red, which is really sweet because that means we can cast 2 Faithless Lootings, exile 1 with Spellweaver Helix, and when we flash back the second one, it will still trigger our Spellweaver Helix and get us a Worldfire. Ideas Unbound, pretty powerful in our deck. 2 blue mana for a sorcery. Draw 3 cards, discard 3 cards at the next end of turn. So we cast this during our main phase, we get to draw 3. We can do whatever we want with those cards. And then at the end of our turn, we have to discard 3 cards, which again can be our Worldfires and other sorceries. Then we have 4 copies of Gifts Ungiven. Gifts is not a sorcery, so we can't imprint it on Spellweaver Helix, but it is a really guaranteed way to get a Worldfire and another sorcery in our graveyard. So Gifts, 3 and a blue, instant, search your library for up to, those are keywords on Gifts Ungiven, 4 cards with different names, and reveal them. Target opponent chooses 2 of those cards, put the chosen cards in your graveyard, and the rest into your hand, then shuffle your library. So because Gifts Ungiven says up to, we can take and search our library for only 2 cards, and we are guaranteed to put those cards in our graveyard. So it becomes 4 mana, instant speed, tutor any 2 different cards into our graveyard. So we can cast this at the end of our opponent's turn, search up a Worldfire, and another copy of whatever sorcery we have in our hand. If it's an Ideas Unbound, a Faithless Looting, some more that we're going to talk about. And then we untap, play our Spellweaver Helix, exile the 2 cards, including the Worldfire, cast the other copy of the sorcery, get our Worldfire, and go from there. So it's just guaranteed way to make sure we get the 2 sorceries we need into our graveyard. Our other sorceries are 4 copies of Gitaxian Probe. This might be the best sorcery in our deck for triggering Spellweaver Helix. So it is 1 Phyrexian blue mana, and it says look at target player's hand and draw a card. So since it's Phyrexian mana, you can cast it either for 1 blue mana or for 2 life. So in theory, this is our way to get a Worldfire on turn 3. We Faithless Looting on turn 1, discard a Worldfire and a Gitaxian Probe. On turn 3, we can play our Spellweaver Helix. And then we play the Gitaxian Probe for free. It triggers our Spellweaver Helix. We get to cast a Worldfire, and we go from there. Serum Visions, kind of the same idea. Not only is it a cheap sorcery to trigger our Worldfire from our Spellweaver Helix, but it also helps us find our Worldfires in Spellweaver Helix, so it's just the best cantripping spell in Modern. Not that it's great, but it's the best of our bad options. So 1 mana blue sorcery, draw a card, and then you get to scry 2. So you get to move 2 non-Worldfire, non-Spellweaver Helix cards to the bottom of our library. Then we have 4 copies of Simian Spirit Guide. This is our way to accelerate into our Worldfire even faster with the help of Spellweaver Helix. So in theory, it is not impossible that we could cast a Worldfire on turn 1. It is very unlikely we would need all 4 copies of Simian Spirit Guide. That said, more likely it is our way to make sure on turn 2 or turn 3 we can cast a Worldfire, assuming we have all our combo pieces. And it is a creature that we can cast after Worldfire. That is the hard part of this deck. That is what I think the challenge will be. Actually casting Worldfire, we have so many cantrips and card draw spells and tutors. I don't think that actually assembling the Spellweaver Helix Worldfire combo will be hard. I'm a little nervous that we won't be very good at winning after we cast a Worldfire, but in theory, we Worldfire everything away, we draw some more lands, and we can use Simian Spirit Guide as a 2/2 to attack for that last point of damage. Speaking of winning, after we resolve a Worldfire, we have 2 different cards to help us do this. First, we have Riftbolt. Riftbolt, 3 mana, Lightning Bolt, essentially, sorcery speed, but it has Suspend for 1 red mana. So in theory, if we have a Riftbolt in our hand, we can suspend that, then cast our Gitaxian Probe or whatever to cast our Worldfire from under Spellweaver Helix, and then at our next upkeep, this will come out of the exile zone off of Suspend, and we hit our opponent for the last for 3 damage, which gets rid of that 1 point of life that's left over after Worldfire. So that's the idea with Riftbolt. Riftwing Cloudskate works in a similar way. It suspends for 3 turns for 1 and a blue, has flying, it's a 2/2. When it comes into play, you return a permanent to its owner's hand, but with Suspend, a creature comes down with haste. So essentially, if we can suspend this, and then maybe the turn after we suspend it, we can cast a Worldfire. 2 turns after that, we will have a hasty 2/2 flyer to get in that last point of damage and actually win the game. Mana base wise, we have 8 fetches, 2 flooded strands, 2 wooded foothills, and 4 polluted deltas. The polluted deltas in a perfect world would be Scalding Tarns, but I didn't really want to go buy Scalding Tarns because they're very expensive on Magic Online, and I don't think it makes that big of a difference. And then we have 4 Steam Vents to find with our fetch lands, 4 Shivan Reefs is an untapped blue-red dual, 2 islands, 1 mountain, and a single Academy Ruins, which in theory gets our Spellweaver Helix back from the graveyard. If our opponent counters it or it gets killed by an Abrupt Decay, we can pay 1 in a blue, put it on top of our library, we'll draw it our next turn, cast it again, and hopefully be able to set up our combo again. Sideboard-wise, pretty typical combo deck sideboard. 4 Dispels, 2 Swan Songs, so these stop whatever instance our opponent might be playing to disrupt our combo. I imagine it would be pretty frustrating to cast a Worldfire and have it get hit by Spell Pierce or something. So these cards make sure that isn't a problem. For Relic of Progenitus to answer graveyard decks, 3 Pyroclasms just as a hedge against aggro decks to give us some hope against elves or Infact decks that can kill us even faster than we can combo off. And then a couple copies of Blood Moon to mess with our opponent's mana base. Anyway, that's the deck. Whether or not this will work, I'm not sure. Like I mentioned, I think just because we have Faithless Looting, Gitaxian Probe, Serum Visions, Ideas Unbound, and Gifts Ungiven, we should be pretty good at assembling Spellweaver Helix, Worldfire in the graveyard, along with another sorcery. What I'm worried about is the step 2. So I think we're going to be able to Worldfire rather often. Will we have a Riftwing Cloudskate or Riftbolt suspended when we Worldfire? That I'm not so sure about. So we might be in some of these awkward draw-offs where we cast a Worldfire, cards, graveyards, hands, battlefields are emptied, both players are at 1 life, and us and our opponent are just each drawing cards off the top, seeing who draws lands first, seeing who draws a creature they can cast first. And there is some awkwardness there because since we're at 1 life, fetch lands are shut off. So you can't draw a fetch land and just crack it to get mana. So it's a really, I imagine some really weird scenarios post-Worldfire if we don't happen to have one of our suspend cards suspended when we fire it off. And there probably will be situations where we're just going to need to fire off the Worldfire because we don't have much defense in this deck. So if our opponent has lethal on board or is close to lethal, we probably need to Worldfire even if we don't have a card suspended, just to keep from dying, and then hope for the best afterwards. So we'll see how it goes. My prediction is we will Worldfire a lot, and we will win, oh man, maybe 25% of the time, so about 1 every 4 games. Assuming we just put together our combo and have a card suspended, we can beat anyone as early as turn 2 or turn 3. Whether or not we have all the right pieces, I don't know. Hopefully our cantrips and our looting spells will be able to put them together for us, but we'll see how it turns out. Anyway, I hope you enjoy our Worldfire videos. Make sure to check out the website, mtggoldfish.com. That's where you'll find the article for this Against the Odds, the voting for the next Against the Odds, decks, prices, metagame strategy, tons of awesome content by myself and other people as well. And if you enjoyed the video, take a second to click the subscribe button or the like button, which are about to pop up on the bottom of your screen. It'll keep you up to date on all the latest and greatest in video content from mtggoldfish.com. Anyway, thank you all for watching. I hope you enjoy our Worldfire in Modern videos, and I will talk to you soon.